I'd love to welcome to stage. We have two of the challengers for this year, Claire and Anika. We have Nazrin, who's a challenger from last year and Threshold Ambassador, and Ed from Threshold Sports. So firstly, welcome everyone. Can you give a quick introduction to you and more importantly, how you started running?
How I started running? Oh, I've got a mic on, yeah, sorry. First of all, I tried to avoid the second seat because Martin basically said he was here last year and he wanted to take the last seat and you get away from the questions. So I've got the questions. So what was the question?
Quick intro, how you started running.
How I started running. So I started running about sorry guys. Let me calm down. I don't normally do this, by the way. I do a lot of work behind scenes, but let me get comfortable. I never been like on a panel like this, in a room full of like leaders and things like that. But at the same time, I know we've got so much passion, so much work going on in the background, and I think, like as Sophie mentioned, it's a great opportunity to get that out there now. Now, how I started running was about, say, 2 to 3 years ago. And I am someone who's like very sporty, athletic. I go to gym a lot, but running was never my forte, never in my mind or anything like that. But life experiences happened. And as you get older, lots of things happen in life. And, you know, I lost my brother to cancer. And when I was his carer, and when all these things happen, you have to, you lose yourself. I lost myself along the way, basically, and I became secondary to who I am. And after that happened, you know, he passed away, I came out, and the world was so massive, I was lost in a hole. You know, I came out the door, my first time stepping out of the house, I was like, what am I doing here? Where am I? Things like that. And as time went on, the gym that I love is my escape, wasn't giving me the satisfaction to get out there and keep moving forward. So, you know, I found running through a group of friends because we came up with the line, I hate running. So we did like a 100-mile challenge to do within a month. But I didn't know what mile was or what paces meant. I was like, it's a number, let's hit it. So, you know, we was going in and out of the house like 3 or 4 times a day to see who's going to be on the top of the leaderboard. Next minute, we did the 100 miles within 3 weeks, and I didn't know what that distance meant. I was like, oh yeah, wow, I hit it. I came second anyway. But and then it was like, what happens next? And, you know, I didn't even know about races. I mean, I watched London Marathon on TV with my dad growing up, but never thought, you know, we do these things as normal people. I thought that's just a TV thing. And, you know, someone mentioned about the big half. I was like, oh, let's do it. Again, although I did 100 miles for 3 weeks, I did not know what a half marathon distance was alone on its own. Went there, I was like, oh my gosh, I started bawling my eyes out. I didn't even train for it. We just like signed up, did it, and I was like, I was crying the entire time. Came to the end of the line, I was like, what was that? And then, you know, since then, I thought, do you know what? That helped me move forward. So, you know, I've got this saying how I love turning things I hate into love, and that was that for me, and I needed that to grieve, to heal, to move forward, and especially like someone as a female at my age, when women around me are doing so many other things and I'm not hitting those milestones. Like, what are those milestones? My milestones, me hitting things I've never done before, and that was that for me, and that gave me the element to fill that gap for myself. So I continued running. I started going around different communities, and you know, the more I showed up, the more I felt alone as well, because like, where is everyone? You know, where are my friends? Like, why are they not running? Why are they not with me here? So I turned up to like loads of events, and you know, I was like, oh wow, it is really like, you know, you are the only person there. I was like, I never felt that before. And you know, when you come out your bubble, like, oh, there's the other world outside that you know, you start talking to yourself, and frustration started growing. So the more I went out there, the more I realized, oh God, you know, something needs to happen, but I didn't know how to channel it or how to voice it. I didn't know about communities and, you know, what community meant, because I'm a commercial accountant. I work in corporate, and working full-time, you don't understand what community means, or, you know, things like that, and what community work is until you actually see it and do it. And I went there and like, oh wow, there are amazing communities doing amazing things, but I don't fit into them. And I was like, I need to channel my frustrations. And when I channeled it, that's how SheRACES existed. So SheRACES is a club that I founded, but we can move on to that after.
Okay, Claire.
Hello, I'm Claire. I'm one of this year's challengers. I started running probably quite late in life, about 20 years ago. when my husband signed up for the London Marathon and I was a running widow, so joined him. And since then, I've done a fair bit of running. I'm also doing a lot of long-distance walking, South West Coast Path and Welsh Coast Path, carrying all our kit and so on. But at the moment, I have family restrictions. I've got an elderly father in bed with Alzheimer's. I've also got a 4-year-old grandson. So I don't want to go away for any long periods of time. So when the Threshold Challenge popped up in my mailbox, I thought, aha, this could be the one. And the running through the challenge, a bit like you said, it gets you out there, it gives you some headspace. I can leave Dad. I know he's going to be there in an hour or 2 or 4 or whatever. He's not going anywhere. And that's this year's challenge. And hopefully we'll keep running.
So I'm Anika. I was not raised in the UK. I was raised in Saudi Arabia. So I did not have any exposure to running. Running was never a conversation that came up, especially being a South Asian woman. It's never part of the culture or the community for women to take part in sports. When I got to my teenage years, I wanted to lose weight, as most teenage girls do. And so I started joining a gym. It was the first only women's gym in Saudi Arabia. And it was actually a physiotherapy-based gym. And I started going there, and since then, I just fell in love with it. I found my calling, I found my people, and I never really looked back. Then I moved to the UK for uni, and I was still going to the gym. I started personal training. I was working in the field and everything, and I just kind of got bored after COVID. I was just like, I've been going to the gym for a long time, took a long break during COVID because gyms were closed, and my life was on hold pretty much. And then I was like, I need something that's going to drive me, that I'm going to struggle again and try to start from scratch to build up. So I signed up for London Marathon through a community spot, thinking I wouldn't get a spot. Like, oh yeah, we'll just see if we get it. Nobody gets it. And behold, I got a spot. Then I had to actually train for it. I was like, oh, what did I do? But since then, I have been signing up for so many races. I don't know if it's like a quarterly life crisis, because I'm just like, when is she going to stop? It's, okay, the half, okay, this, okay, triathlon. I'm kind of going through a bit of a crisis, but here I am, another crisis doing Threshold, hopefully a good one that will take an amazing turn, and hopefully not the last one, and we'll just see how it goes.
I'm slightly regretting sitting on the end because I'm consistently going to be the least interesting person on this panel.
We can swap.
But yeah, my name's Ed. I'm a member of the team at Threshold, and I'm quite heavily involved in the Ultra 50/50 campaign now for a couple of years. I've been running ultras for 10 years now, and I think the previous speaker mentioned doing something and feeling like you found your thing, and for me that was very much ultras, so very privileged to work for one of the UK's major ultra organisers.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. And so let's start with Claire and Anika. You're the challengers for this year, signing up for your first ultra. What was it about the Threshold event and the Challengers programme that's made you sign up, and what's been your experience so far of it?
I think it's been really exciting. I think the support that Threshold give you right from the very point that you sign on that dotted line, you're part of the community. You're part of the Threshold community, and they don't forget you. They're with you all the way. They give you advice on nutrition. They give you advice on the Runner app, on feet. They've got community events. So throughout the whole process, you're there, and hopefully they won't forget you either when you pass the finish line. So yeah, it's been a really good journey so far. I've really enjoyed it.
So I only knew about Threshold through Nazrin. So Nazrin was one of the challengers for last year. And I saw that she did like a crazy 50K ultra, and I was like, is this a thing? Can I do this? And then when the spot came up on Threshold, I was like, why not? Let me just sign up. I've done London Marathon now. What's the worst that could happen? Another 8K. So I signed up on a whim, and I think the experience was, it wasn't like what I thought it was going to be like signing up for a marathon and that's it. You just do it, right? You do the training. But I feel like they've actually held our hand the whole way through.
Definitely.
And I feel like we actually have a voice. So if there's any concerns that I have, they've been really accessible. They've been really communicative as well. So I've had an amazing experience so far. Like you said, Claire, I hope they don't forget about us at the end.
And just going to Ed, I mean, can you talk from the threshold side about the experience kind of last year, and if there's anything that surprised you about the success it had in attracting women?
Yeah, just to lay some context, if you came to Let's Do This Live last year, you may have seen our CEO, Nick, talking about this campaign. But we set out to try and achieve a 50-50 parity at our ultramarathons, which is obviously quite against the grain for the industry as a whole. I think some research that Lucy at Let's Do This helped us with early on found that the general split at ultras was around 30% women to 70% men. We'd always been higher than that, but we wanted to push it further. We did a whole series of initiatives, some of which were around representation and how we market our events, some of which were more logistical. I think Sophie mentioned the actual net increase in cost was only 1.5% to our overall budget, so not a huge expenditure. But we saw some really positive return. I mean, across the board, we saw 13% more women, but within that number, there's a lot of more granular detail. So, for instance, we offer 50K and 100K events. Obviously, most people taking on their first ultra are not going to jump up to the 100K mark. So when you look at the 50K events, the increase across the board was 39%. And at Race to the King, which was the focal point of the whole initiative, it was 98%, as Sophie mentioned. So a huge increase, which from a business perspective is obviously great to see, and it really makes the case for investing in this kind of work. And we may come onto it, but one of the other things we found was that we didn't actually, across the board, achieve 50% female participation, but that wasn't because of no women showing up, it was because more men showed up. So this work didn't actually put off the men, it just encouraged more people across the board, because many of the barriers are unique to women, but some of them around just positioning your event as a welcoming and inclusive one. A lot of men, would be intimidated by slightly more macho traditional positioning as well. So yeah, we didn't see any burn in that regard.
And kind of, I mean, the She Runs community is an amazing community of hundreds of runners, many Muslim runners going. How important do you think that the peer and community aspect is in getting more women on the start lines of the longer events?
Yeah, so part two, She Runs existed about 15 months ago. And basically, we are an unaffiliated corporation. And when I initially started She Runs, there's no rule book. It was just based on frustration. I was like, I want to see more women running. It's based on ethnic women, running, but bringing more ethnic women to the start lines. Now, first of all, if I go on to talking about barriers, especially as a brown woman, growing up, we don't have women of my colour running. And it's more looking at what's our barriers. And the best person who knows the barriers is myself. And how do I encourage that for today's women to break those barriers and bridge the gap to get to the start lines? Now, a lot of work has gone in the background because I am starting from scratch where there's no one else doing what I'm doing right now. And so what was the support important? Basically, I need to show that, look, there's women that's out there and, if they can do it, you can do it too. And it evolved so fast, our pictures were out there, showcasing the women's, and everybody who's at home sitting there thinking, oh wow, they look like me, I want to be out there too. But I can't do that without the support, and support basically means I need people to connect with what we're trying to do here. We're trying to change the future of running, the culture of running, how can we make that long-lasting? It's not about bringing women to the start lines today. How can we keep that going every time? How do these women just do one ultras, for example, and how do we get them to come back and do more? It's not just hitting milestones, you need to keep coming back. And what we've built now is basically a community of women's sisterhood. And, it's such a beautiful space where they want to keep coming back for more because of the people around them. But what we need is support. I've got nobody on the other side of the phone saying, how can I help you? I've got no rule book, nothing, but, financially, we've got no support, nothing. And I was like, yeah, you want women to come to the start lines, but I need people on the other side to listen, let me listen to you, let me hear you out. Why are you doing this? What can we do to make you, do a lot more? And, I need those conversations to happen. And, I'm on my own doing this, and Threshold Trails is amazing. First of all, when Michael reached out to me, I never thought of myself doing an ultramarathon. He actually reached out to me 3 times. And the third time I was like, no, this must be a sign from God. What is going on here? You know, let me look into this. What is an ultra marathon, first of all? Although I did 2 marathons after that. And then, you know, it's like, okay, it's a sign from God. Let me look down. At the same time, I was setting up SheRACES. I was like, hold on, I'm fighting here to be seen. Why can't I do that ultra marathon and be that person to be seen for the women that I'm trying to create, basically? So I was like, let me go forward, let me research. Then I saw Sophie Power. I didn't even know about Sophie actually at the time. Although I've got my own, like, you know, frustrations that I'm trying to battle. I looked into Sophie. I was like, whoa, Sophie's an incredible woman. I want to be this person. What is she doing? And then I found out, Thresholds was accredited by SheRACES. And, you know, to be this far fighting for women's rights, would that happen if you weren't doing all the research, if that makes sense? You know, we need to look at all the areas that connects us to be together and to bring more women to the start line. And, you know, I became that person and, you know, I became that leader for the women that I was building on the other side. And now because I did that opportunity, I've got 30 women coming to do the ultra marathon this year. And, you know, I would never have said that. 30 ethnic women, by the way. And, you know, first of all, we're not only just battling how to run, we're taking on new distances that we would never, ever hear them doing before. So, yeah, it's been a journey. It's still a journey. So thank you. Yeah.
And so kind of coming on to this year, kind of going back to you, Ed, what have you taken from learnings of last year, and how is Threshold kind of moving forward this initiative this year with the new challenges?
Yeah, so we had 6 challenges last year. We've got 10 this year. One of the things we've really found is that although the research we do kind of necessarily discovers general trends when it comes to challenges and things like that, with the Challenger initiative, telling the stories that are more specific, more concrete, it's a bit of a trope in storytelling, is that the more specific you are, the more resonant those stories will be. That's been a big part of it. It's just telling the stories of our amazing women, of which we have 2 on the stage. A big focus for us this year is actually on walkers. So Threshold's events have always been walker inclusive. We have extended cut-off times, and we actually, I was chatting to someone earlier about this, we take sort of careful effort to ensure that those cut-off times are positioned in a way that isn't too intimidating. They're there for logistical and you know, cost reasons, but they are very, I think last year at Race to the King, the last finisher took 26 hours to walk 100K. At Race to the Stones, it was a guy called Colin who took 30 hours. And we want to make sure that walkers are welcome at our events, because we did some research that found with Aspire PR, who did this research with us, that 54% of women, regardless of whether they're runners or not, would consider an ultra if they knew they could walk. So we really have made some effort now to make it clear that you can walk our events, because actually... I
might have signed up earlier, had I known.
Yes. I think initially when you did, I thought Claire was a walker, and then she said, no, I'm going to run the whole thing. So that's a big part of our focus for this year, is on the walking market.
And that's great. I think kind of one thing to say is a massive thank you to Threshold for actually wanting to share, I think, some of the secret sauce around this, and not keep it to yourself on how you're actually going to get the representation on the start line, because I think, as Sam said earlier, it's amazing being in this room where everyone wants to share and wants to help the industry, because if we get more women in the funnel, then women are going out to doing this race, but then they're doing other races. Kind of coming back to Claire and Nika, you've signed up for your first ultra, you've got kind of people around you. What do you think some of the biggest barriers are that you've seen to kind of the people around you, women in your networks, to signing up for ultras, and how could events address them?
Well, I think, as Ed said, is that, you know, they've got this vision of someone super fit doing these amazing mileages, and actually you don't have to be, you can be anybody, and to encourage people that, you know, that you can walk. I think that's quite important, and it is for everybody.
Ultras are a distance, not a time.
Yeah,
it's true. And celebrate everybody who crosses the finish line, even the people who start, doesn't matter.
Yeah, 100%. And I think even with the way that they market things and what they post on social media, I think you need to be diverse with what you're posting on social media and what you envision an ultra runner to look like. If I saw that representation a lot sooner growing up, it would have been a pathway that maybe I could have gone into something more endurance-based. Like, you never see a lot of diversity with the marketing for triathlon, for ultras, for marathons. It's always the same type, same able-bodied person, in the same color, in the same everything. I think we need more diversity on that, to 100%.
Bring the question to Nazrin too. Kind of, what do you see that are the barriers to the women in your community, and how can event organisers address those?
I think the barriers, I think connecting with communities is a big element. Community is the foundation to breaking those barriers and bridging that gap to bring the women to the start lines. Now, like, for example, Threshold Trails, we've got a lot of women from SheRACES coming. And if I weren't the, challenger last year, we wouldn't have these women coming to these start lines. They wouldn't even heard of Threshold, probably. I'm looking at Michael because I'm thinking, thank you for bringing me here, because he had to ask me 3 times to do this. The biggest barrier, especially like coming from an all-girls school, I went to an all-girls school, and, PE, I bunked, I wasn't bothered, and, I know there were girls around me who weren't confident, and, the way they look at, even amongst women and themselves, and coming out of school, and I'm thinking, now that I'm here and I've gone through it myself, I'm like, how can I create a space where these women can feel confident and feel comfortable and in a safe space? And I think community is a big element where, you're connecting with real life people, not influencers, not, those on painting a picture on social media. I always tell our women, don't follow everybody on Instagram, and, come off it and connect with real life people. And I think when you connect with communities, they're real lives where they're actually genuinely trying to break barriers and build bridges, and that's our motto. And that could be in any way, the way you want to interpret it. And I think the best way to, break those barriers is to help support those communities that are working on it. Would they be at the start line? No. I mean, would you have more women at the start line? Yes, if you connect with communities who are working hard. We're a family, we're a unit, and, it's expanding rapidly, especially like we're 15 months into this. SheRACES has got 600 women on board already, and we started a new program called Call to Action, and Call to Action is basically younger women from the age of 17 to 24. I was so shocked. First of all, the only reason why I set that up is because I'm attracting older women who are going through life experiences or, looking for something new. But why are we not connected with the younger women who are coming out of school and that gap is missing? They don't have the women to see, oh, I can do this too because the girls my age are doing this. Actually, when I put that call to action out, they saw a safe space. They saw a space where there's women older than them that's running out there. They saw mentors, leaders from the community, but they're not technically leaders, but they are the leaders of the community, basically. And they saw real-life people who are not influencers, anything like that. We had so many people apply to this program. This program is basically just done for free, voluntary. And, to see that much, it just shows how much they are interested if we're giving them the space for it. And, if we're tapping into the market, we need to tap into the younger women. We need to tap back, tap to the future of our generation and look, how do we get them in their 30s, 40s, doing loads of races? Let's connect with the younger women that's coming out of school, give them the chance, give them the bridge to, come forward. And that's our next, work that we're working on at the moment. So, yeah.
Thank you. We've got time for a couple of quick questions, if anyone has any.
I would just say, if you do want to find out more, on the website thresholdsheraseries.com, you can click on the Ultra 50/50 tab. There's a report in there with all the data from last year's campaign. There's an interesting data point, I think it's in the report, which is that women drop out of these races much less than men. But that implies that men maybe back themselves to take on a challenge they're not quite ready for more than women do. So if you're a marketer in the room, there's a real case to be made for encouragement as a message and invitation, because it may be that women, generally speaking, require that bit more encouragement, but once they're on the start line, they tend to do better than the men.
I'm glad you said that, Anami.
When it comes to the specific storytelling, as far as when you're looking for those stories that really resonate, what are you sort of talked about, actually, maybe the influencers that are being highlighted at the moment aren't the people who are inspiring you to get onto those start lines. What's a way that we can, as the industry, reach more into those communities, tell those stories, tell those specific stories that resonate, rather than just sort of like pumping everything over Instagram? What's some examples of people really turning up in your communities that has really helped bring your community into it?
I mean, like, for example, with Threshold Trails, they followed my journey. They caught me at my most vulnerable moment, which actually got recorded. And if I look back at it now, I'll be like, oh my gosh, was I in that mindset at that place? But that story was shared with all my friends and family, and we're like, that's real life. they caught me in my house, raw, filming me. I'm like, what is all this? Like, you know, and actually that's real life. I'm not putting music on it. I'm not like dancing around or, you know, I'm actually showing you that actually I'm trying to work on myself here. I never thought of myself doing an ultra marathon. I've come from a marathon and, you know, that's real life. Like, you know, it's not just I'm doing a marathon, guys. I'm doing my first ultra marathon. Yes, it's amazing, but actually we all have reasons and our whys, and the whys are what connects with real life people. And yeah, I think that's the big one, is showcasing real life stories and being as authentic as possible, and also, you know, coming out and connecting with the communities, coming out and actually, you know, being there amongst real life people and not just what you see on social media, basically. I'm not against social media, by the way, I'm not. It's just, I think real life is what's happening behind scenes and the work that's happening behind scenes, and, you know, talking to the right people behind scenes, and that's how you connect more if you want to hear more, basically. And you need to be there, your presence needs to be there to see it and to connect as well. So, yeah.
No questions? Well, I'm sure I wanted to give a massive thank you to the panel, to Nazrin, to Claire, to Nika and Ed. And I'm sure that everyone's around in the break afterwards if you want to ask any further questions.
Thank you.